Terry Rozier made his Heat debut on Wednesday night and brought a nice spark defensively, but the result was all too familiar as Miami failed to reach 100 points for the fifth time in 7 games and suffered their 4th straight loss. What did Rozier bring to the table in his first game in Miami? What's wrong with the team's perimeter shooting? And can they fix it in time as they prepare to host the Boston Celtics in less than 24 hours? We'll break it all down on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com. Joining me as always, longtime NBA reporter David Ramil. However, you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The Miami Heat lost to the Grizzlies 105-96, spoiling Terry Rozier's debut. They've lost 4 straight games for the first time since the opening couple of weeks of the season. They have failed to crack 100 points in 5 of their last 7 games. I do want to talk more about our first additions of Terry Rozier in a Heat uniform, but even his addition was not enough to juice the Heat's offense in this one. What happened, David?
Well, from what I could tell anyway, it looked like he was a little hesitant to shoot the three-point shot. And there were a lot of opportunities there where, again, what we had talked about in our preview after the trade was consummated, we said, you know what, it'll be a lot of drive and kick, open shots from the perimeter. Well, there were shots from the perimeter. Nobody was taking them. There were all these secondary motions where there was this drive and kick game and then just a drive again and then take another mid-range shot. So now Terry, as good as he is and as good as he was prolific anyway from three-point shots and from in Charlotte, there were a lot of opportunities there where he just didn't take the shot. He would just put the ball down, try to get to the rim, and not hit those shots at the rim. And then you've got these 4 players now that are operating in the mid-range with Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. And that offense looked clunky as hell. I don't know what it looked like on TV, but in person, it was miserable. And there just didn't seem to be any kind of semblance of a flow whatsoever. Now, I look at the three-point shooting, and I know we can go into a lot of different details about what went wrong today, but I saw 22 attempts in the first 3 quarters of play, and then another 11 attempts in the fourth quarter when it was desperation time. And when you actually were able to mount a comeback, you were entered the fourth quarter down 14, and you managed to cut it to 4 within 1 point, I think because of the strength of the three-point shooting. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of, the whole offense just discombobulated late in the game.
Yeah, the three-point shot was an issue because if you look on paper, they took 33 three-pointers in the game. They averaged 32.9 for the season, which is right about where they were. It's basically shooting what they do on the season average. But to your point, they only took 33 three-point shots because they were behind by double digits, 15 points or 16 points or whatever it was in the game. They had to try to get back, and so they started taking those threes. Duncan Robinson finally got it going. But I think overall, I didn't mind the shot distribution, I guess, as much as you did. At the end of the day, they took 39% of their shots at the rim. They took 27% of their shots in the mid-range, which is less than what they usually take, and 34% of their shots from three-point range. I actually like that distribution quite a bit. I just think a bunch of those, they just missed a bunch of shots. A lot of those threes were open. They didn't make them. They said, okay, these threes aren't going in. Let's try to get to the basket. Terry Rozier did pass up probably 3 or 4 three-pointers to try to get to the rim. I don't know. I'm with you where I would prefer that he just take those shots. And even Tyler Hero passed up a few open three-pointers. Duncan Robinson got fewer minutes than Caleb Martin and Josh Richardson. I didn't love that from a rotation standpoint. I still think it was a little clunky bringing Terry Rozier off the bench, starting Josh Richardson. I just think it kind of clunked up the rotations a little bit for Eric Spoelstra. I understand why he did it because Rozier literally just got here, and he probably didn't want to throw him into the starting mix right away. But I think that'll be better. Maybe I'm too much of an optimist here. I'm looking for reasons to be positive, even though this offense is still just totally in cement. And one of the reasons is that shot distribution. I thought it was better. I thought the drive and kick stuff that Terry Rozier did created some open threes. They just missed a lot of shots. And this game looks a lot better if they're just missing or if they're just making some of those open shots, because the process, I thought, overall was good. It wasn't great. It wasn't elite. It's not going to be a top 5 offense, but it was good enough. The process was.
I could see that perspective, and I'm glad you're bringing a little bit more optimism. Maybe it was just the kind of witnessing the defeat in person, and then the anticlimactic moment where Rozier had a wide open shot from the wing, and they're down.
You called it, man. You tweeted from the Locked On Heat account. You're at Kaseya Center. You're recording this from Kaseya Center. I was watching it from TV, and you tweeted from the account like, "This is all just setting up, down 12 going into the fourth quarter for a Terry Rozier shot." I'm like, is this guy a genie? Like, what's happening? Like, I didn't know that you could see the future. He literally takes a shot for 3 to take the lead with, what was it, like a couple of minutes left in the game, and it clanks off. And I was like, of course. That's that's the ultimate Heat thing to do. Yeah. Snatching defeat from the claws of victory.
Rozier is confident and capable of taking those shots in the fourth quarter. So I knew it was going to work out that way. He's not shy about being the one with the ball in his hands if it's a game-winning type situation. So, again, that was just my perspective, is that I wish that it would have happened, because it would have been a nice story, right? It would have been great in his return back. And even Spo mentioned this. Like, Spo isn't one for, like, those kind of narratives, but in the post-game press conference, he was like, we thought we had it. It was a nice moment there. It would have been nicer if he'd hit it, something to that effect. But there was a lot of just, it didn't work out. And both he and Terry were asked about the last couple of 24 hours, the last 24 hours, just, the whirlwind of the whole experience. And neither of them used that as an excuse. But basically, the trade is announced at 11 o'clock yesterday or somewhere around that time. And then you're on your way to Miami. You've got to go through doctor's appointments and your locker room, getting your uniform, and everything is this rush state. And yet, I think he did pretty well overall. I know they both seem to like the process, similarly to what you said, and they like the idea of it moving forward. They think it's going to be a lot more smooth, and I agree with that perspective too, because I really do think there were some nice things to take away from that. Unfortunately, Rozier in particular, and I know we'll probably talk about this a little bit more later on, like those shots at the rim, and he was able to get to the rim fairly easily. Unfortunately, a lot of those shots rimming out, and that was just very bizarre to see.
Yeah, I mean, the shooting percentage for him wasn't great overall. There was some clunkiness. Mm-hmm. I want to do a deep dive on Terry Rozier in the next segment. The offense is a problem, and I don't know if just swapping Kyle Lowry for Terry Rozier is enough to turn what is the 20th ranked offense in the league. It's probably going to drop after this game. Yeah. Their offensive rating in this game was 98 points per 100 possessions. That's 2015 levels offense. I mean, that's bad. And so I don't really know what the fix is. It just seems like there's a lid on the basket, and then a couple guys miss shots early, and then all of a sudden everybody looks a little tentative. Should I take this shot? Should I pass it for a more open shot? Yep. And there are times where I just want Rozier, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, all these guys, Bam. I didn't see like a good in rhythm foul line jumper from Bam until basically the fourth quarter in this one, David. And so I'm just it just feels like everybody's a little too hesitant and a little they're scared of the rim. They're scared to see a ball go up there and clank out like so many other ones have before, failing to crack 100 points in 5 of the last 7 games. This offense is bad. It's not that bad, right? It's not that bad. It's not all-time levels of bad. And so I think this is just a weird stretch, and I hate just sort of chalking it up to that, but bad shooting is like a disease. It's contagious. It goes around the locker room, and everybody gets infected. Kevin Love had a really bad first half. Duncan Robinson didn't make his field, and then didn't come back in the second half. Duncan Robinson didn't make his first field goal until the fourth quarter. The Heat started making that comeback with that lineup of Duncan, Rozier, Caleb, Jimmy, and Bam. That lineup in that fourth quarter stretch was a +6, and then then Duncan comes out for Tyler Hero. We have a question about that later, so I want to go back into too much in detail on that. But that was sort of the story of the game. There is that they finally started making shots. They got back into the game, but it was a little too late.
Spo talked about this, and again, a little atypical for him, but the way he kind of framed it, had Rozier hit that shot, like that's a singular moment there that could provide a spark where all of a sudden things turn around. Like he loves these games. Like despite the fact that, well, maybe not despite, he recognizes it's a loss, so it's difficult, but he likes these games that they're this close, just back and forth, and that you respond to that. He wanted the team to respond with some grit in order to come back and to finalize that comeback by, getting a win. Fortunately, it didn't work out that way, but he thought that maybe had Rozier hit that shot, that would have been the spark to kind of just say, you know what, we can get out of our own heads. We don't have to worry about the shots not falling. And next thing you know, and we've seen this before. I mean, throughout NBA history, even this team in particular, like when that earlier in the season when they had a 7-game win streak, it just seemed like one thing worked out well. Next thing you know, it just continues to build and build and build. Maybe that's a little reductive and simple, but I think it kind of speaks to what this team is looking for is in terms of a spark, needing something to turn them around. I'm actually interested in seeing how this team responds tomorrow against the Celtics. Less than 24 hours to go. You don't have a lot of time to think about it. Does this team, with everything they've got and with the kind of tenacity they've shown in the past, do they respond by saying this is an opportunity for us to punch the best team in the Eastern Conference in the mouth and kind of get our mojo back a little bit? Because I think that might help them.
We know they get up for Boston, right? And maybe they were even already thinking about the Celtics in this game. You got the Rozier coming in. Game, how do we fold him in? You're thinking about Rozier's introduction, the trap game aspect of it all. We know they're going to get up for that Celtics game Friday night. Really excited for that one. But let's do a deep dive into Terry Rozier's debut with the Miami Heat. Almost won the game, arguably, for Miami. Also was involved in the play that might have lost the Heat the game. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Grammarly. Look, I know I'm a writer. Wes, you're a writer. We both have difficulty when it comes to writing sometimes. That's what we are. That's what we do. We have to write stories, but sometimes you're stuck. You don't get the right ideas, or maybe you need some help, or maybe you just want a second set of eyes. Well, that's what Grammarly can do for you. And you're stuck writing at work. Sometimes Grammarly can help you get started with ideas, outlines, even tips to get everything rolling. If you need to polish your writing, Grammarly can help paraphrase and rewrite topics to be much more concise. If you got a big presentation coming up, let Grammarly create a personalized outline to get you organized so you can transform your ideas into a compelling presentation. And the best part is it's free to use. Go to Grammarly.com/podcast to download for free today. Start being more productive at work. That's Grammarly, Grammarly.com/podcast. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy, the largest fantasy sport platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers, not thousands of other players. You just pick more than or less than the stat projections on 2 to 6 players, and you watch the winnings roll in. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. And PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured for football and basketball games. Right now, they'll also match up to $100 on Prime and go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Daily fantasy sports made easy.
All right. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Got questions about the closing lineup, the starting lineup, Jimmy Butler struggles. We're going to get to all of that here in a second, but let's do the deep dive into Terry Rozier. He made his Heat debut tonight, came off the bench, had 9 points on 3 for 11 shooting, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 29 minutes. Also closed the game, made some big plays late. What did you think of his debut, David?
Uneven, and I wish, again, that a lot of those shots had fallen because if he had, we would probably be talking a lot much more positively. I think it was a little clunky. He wasn't quite sure what to do defensively, offensively. I think he was trying to get everybody going, kind of establish a kind of a nuanced, smooth pattern to offense, and it just wasn't working out. And eventually he was just like, you know what? Screw this. Give me the ball. I know what to do. I'm going to break down the initial defender. I'm going to try to get to the rim. And then when he did, those shots just weren't falling. So it didn't work out offensively for him, although I think there were a couple of nice plays that really had the whole Kaseya Center crowd really interested and invested in his ability to kind of take the next level. Defensively, I thought he was great. Both he and Spo kind of pointed out the fact that maybe he struggled a little bit. Maybe something looked a little bit different. But from my perspective, I think he has really great natural instincts as a defender. I think he was really good at anticipating where a pass was going, where a ball handler was going to move the ball. I think he was trying to do things offensively as a playmaker. So I think had the shot been falling, it would have been much more positive. And if and when that shot falls, I think we'll all be much more receptive to that kind of performance. Unfortunately, and the heels of a loss, you're looking at this as is he going to provide a spark? Is he going to be, something much greater or better than Kyle Lowry? It just didn't work out that way. So I think there's a little hesitation to kind of accept this moment. But overall, I'd say it was okay.
He looked like he never played with those guys before because he never did. Right. There were moments on both sides of the court where he just didn't know where he was supposed to be. And some of this stuff is just sort of pattern recognizing, normal patterns of basketball. Hey, this guy drives on this side. I'm going to float up over here, try to space the floor, draw a defender away. That stuff he was fine at. It was some of the nuanced stuff that is involved in the Miami Heat system and within their players and some of the chemistries that already exist that he just didn't know where he fit in. There was one play in particular where he kind of flips it to Duncan Robinson and then tries to set a screen for Duncan, but Bam comes up to set that screen. Right. And then he immediately just stops and then backpedals. I don't know if I've seen a player backpedal away from setting a screen before in the NBA, but that's what he did because Bam's got, first rights as the center and as Duncan Robinson's best pick and roll partner to set that screen. So he sees Bam come up. He's like, all right, I'm just going to back up here and try to space the floor from the opposite above the break wing. And so there's just little things like that where he's like, oh, okay, y'all already got something. I don't want to be the third wheel in this pick and roll game. And so there's little things like that. Other times where he didn't really know. He seemed like he was, all right, I'm going to drive, and I'm going to kick. But I'm not really sure where Caleb Martin wants to be on this or where he wants the ball. And I'm going to drive, but I don't know if I should stay here in the dunker spot or if I should turn around and kind of go back above the break and try to space out for Jimmy Butler. Is he trying to ISO or is he trying to call somebody over? Does he want a small pick? He kept he would kind of nudge his way over and then kind of backpedal away and different things. So very, very cautious, just trying to read his teammates, all the while also trying to make a positive impact, trying to make shots, trying to get guys involved. That was a really tough spot for Rozier to be in. I thought he did quite well, all things considered. I don't know what people expect. I really don't. I don't know what people expect from these players. This ain't NBA 2K. It doesn't just work as soon as you make the trade. It's not fantasy basketball. And this is, by the way, the first time the Heat have made this dramatic of an in-season addition since Goran Dragic. I mean, it's their first real trade of acquiring a player since the Nemanja Bjelica in 2021. And this is the biggest impact trade that they've made since Goran Dragic. It's clunky. It is hard, especially when you're like, by the way, you're the point guard. Please save our offense now.
Yeah.
This is not an easy spot for him to be in, right? So I thought there were some positives too. There was one sort of he dropped it off and then to who was it, Jimmy Butler or somebody, and then kind of went along the baseline, relocated and got a 3-pointer. It was his first Miami Heat made field goal. I thought it was awesome. I love seeing him sort of relocate with that 3-pointer and then get it from the corner and just catch and shoot. No mess about it. Just, hey, I got open. I'm here. You passed it out to me. I took the shot. I made the shot. Done. End of story. No dribble drive. It's nothing cute. Just did it. I love that. I love seeing that. That's natural scoring instincts. He's a 20-point per game scorer. That shouldn't be surprising. Might have had the smoothest pick and roll I've seen from a Miami Heat offense in years, with Bam Adebayo in the fourth quarter, just sort of this impromptu pick and roll. Bam Adebayo gets the offensive rebound. He kicks it out to Terry Rozier, comes up, sets the pick and roll. Rozier goes right on the right side of the screen, right to the basket, kind of slow-mo, off-kilter, kind of off-pace dribble, gets right by Memphis's defense, finishes with a wrong-footed right-handed layup, which I thought was just, again, smooth, just looked easy. It just, I mean, I was vouching for James Harden earlier in the year. It reminded me of James Harden running pick and roll. It was that simple and that easy. And he is one of the best pick and roll ball handlers in the league this season, according to synergy data. So it looked good. There were also moments there, though, where it didn't. I mentioned some of the clunkiness on offense. Defensively, I thought it was interesting. Before I get to the defensive thing, anything else on the offensive stuff?
What did you think of his overall shot selection? Because another longtime reporter pointed out that he looked very similar to another player I've made a comparison to, Dion Waiters. And, again, the elite ability to break ankles and get to past that initial defender, Terry certainly has that. And then there's a lot of shots there that were like, oh, no. Oh, yes. And, the high off the glass layup on both hands. Like there were a couple moments there where I wasn't sure that he was going to hit those shots. And then, they look good. Yeah. And again, just, the finger roll from distance, it's very similar and very Waiters-esque. So that might bring out a little PTSD.
I know you're a fan of Waiters, and I want to take our listeners back a little bit. That's a compliment coming from you. Saying that he reminds you of Waiters.
I think yes and no, in the sense that, tonight was the inefficient offensive night, but I like his ability to do something that no other player on the roster is capable of right now.
Terry Rozier is a much more accomplished scorer when he had joined the Heat than Dion Waiters was when he joined the Heat. There's no debating that. And I trust Terry. Dion, of course, would debate that. He'd be like me, Michael Jordan. Who else you got? Kobe, maybe. No, Terry Rozier is an accomplished scorer. He's an efficient scorer. He showed that already. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about it. His shot selection, I'm not going to judge that after one game when he's got all that stuff on his plate that we were talking about. I want to talk defensively, what he changed a little bit quick. I don't know that there's a ton to take away because some of it was also matchup dependent. But with Rozier, they played a lot more drop defense. Like Bam was sort of aggressively dropping. And I think that with Rozier, you have a guy who can get over screens and make things happen defensively and chase guys off the line. And I thought he did that really well. And you and I were texting during the game. You were really impressed with Rozier's defense. We've talked a little bit about it already. But when he's going over those screens and being that aggressive and chasing guys off the line, that allows Bam to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of how he's dropping back and corralling those people coming to the basket. It's one of the reasons I think that Bam had a career blocks tonight is because Terry Rozier was involved. That was a noticeable difference in their defensive scheme. And it's something, again, maybe it was matchup dependent, but I think there's something to it. And it's something I'm monitoring going forward. There was the defensive breakdown at the end. Scottie Pippen Jr. going random scrub heat killer alert, driving involving Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero in a pick and roll, drove by both of them. Jimmy Butler has to crash in, help off of Vince Williams Jr. in the corner. Pippen kicks out to Williams. He hits the dagger three from the corner, basically ending the game there. I know a lot of people were kind of queuing up that film and saying, oh my God, like Rozier's not as good defensively as we think. And this is the problem when you start two small guards, they're going to attack them. And they did attack them in the fourth quarter, and that's just going to happen. But I also thought there was a miscommunication there. Rozier probably knows, and they're going to probably show this on film, Bam was out guarding Jaren Jackson Jr. on the perimeter, not back in that drop. I don't know if Rozier thought he was going to be back in that drop. I don't know if Rozier thought he had to go over every screen no matter what, or who was behind him or not behind him in that case. But that was a miscommunication. When that pick and roll is set as high as it was, one of those guys need to go over. Hero and Rozier both leapt up and tried to go over the screen. That's basic 101 defense stuff, and it's this kind of things that I think could get cleaned up basically after one film session. It's, hey, Bam, when Bam's out there, you guys got to communicate, make sure that he's there. Both of you aren't going over, that one of you is coming under to sort of set that interference on the drive. So I'm not, no fire alarms are being set defensively. In other words, I still need to see more good and bad. But let's move on to some of our listener questions, including, are we losing the plot here talking this much about Terry Rozier? Do we need to be talking more about Jimmy Butler? That's coming up next year on Locked On Heat.
You're trying to eat a little healthier in 2024? Well, today's episode is brought to you by Hungryroot, and they're here to rescue you from short-lived resolutions by making meal planning easy and nutritious. You can build healthy habits that won't disappear by February with Hungryroot. Whether you're braving the cold or dealing with crowds, grocery shopping this time of year is the worst. You know, in Florida, it's always bad. No matter what season it is, going to the supermarket is putting your life into your hands sometimes. Why not stay at home and let Hungryroot handle it? With Hungryroot, you can kickstart a week of healthy eating and get groceries delivered right to your door. They make it easy for everyone to eat healthy, and they support all major diets, including gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, dairy-free, low-carb, and others. If this applies to you or someone you know, share to help them find their particular lifestyle and make it much more easy. You can also save money, you can reduce food waste, and you can save time. And right now, if you use a special discount code, you get 40% off free veggies for life. Hungryroot is the easiest way to get fresh, high-quality food delivered to your door. They've got healthy groceries and simple recipes all in one place. You can take a fun short quiz And Hungryroot will know exactly what your goals are and how you like to eat. And they'll ask you what your preferences are so they can start building the grocery needs that you have for that week. You can take their suggestions or you can choose anything you want. Hungryroot gives you so many different options. Right now, Hungryroot is offering Locked On Heat listeners 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/lockedon to get 40% off your first delivery and get your free veggies. That's hungryroot.com/lockedon. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment, let us know what you thought about Terry Rozier's Miami Heat debut. And if you're listening on the podcast app, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and review. Those things really do help. All right, let's get to a few of these listener questions. Thanks to everybody who sent these in using that hashtag AskLOHeat on Twitter. Also, LockedOnHeat@gmail.com, Locked On Heat on Instagram. This one comes from Ken, who writes in, I have my issues with this roster, but my biggest problem has been Jimmy. Imagine Embiid sitting back and forcing Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris to carry them every night. That's essentially what Jimmy does. The others try, but can't carry the team. Going back to what we were talking about in the first segment, David, can Terry Rozier fix Miami's offense? Do they need more from Tyler Hero? We've got questions about, do they need to bench Tyler Hero and all these things? Should they have started Duncan Robinson? All this stuff. At the end of the day, here's what I know. And here's what we're being asked. Jimmy Butler had 15 points on 4 for 10 shooting. Let's even include the free throws in that. 6 of 8 from the free throw line. So between field goal attempts and free throw attempts, those are essentially 14 shots on goal. Jimmy Butler had 14 shots on goal on a night where Bam had basically twice that, on a night where Tyler Hero had 15. Even Terry Rozier in his first game had 12 shots on goal when you include the field goal attempts plus the free throws. Jimmy Butler simply has to be better. And he had 31 points in his debut, or not his debut, but in his return from that long foot injury. And then since then has not been good, has flatly been bad as a star player or otherwise, has not been a good offensive player. I don't know what's up with Jimmy Butler. I don't know if the foot is still bothering him. He does not look aggressive. In fact, I would say so much as he looks disinterested in some of these basketball games. Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Bam, like they can only take this team so far. They need, and especially on a night where tonight where Bam is awesome defensively. The most dominant player on the court defensively was Bam Adebayo. Jimmy Butler's not doing that defensively. He's not dominant offensively. This team's going to go nowhere if they're not getting more from Jimmy Butler. And I don't care if it's not the postseason. They still need a little bit more in the regular season from him, David.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not sure if, again, he hasn't spoken to media in a couple of days. He didn't speak at practice yesterday. He didn't speak today either. So I think it's just a matter of, you're going to have to guess at what might be bothering him. He deserves some blame for it, certainly. Maybe it would have been a very different, again, response from us had a couple of those shots fallen, but they didn't. Does he need to be more aggressive? I don't know. It's just a difficult balance for him because he does so much off, not just on offense, but defensively as well. So between him and Bam,
not doing that much defensively.
They've got a lot on their respective places. You don't think
he had 4 turnovers
defensively?
Today? He had 2. He's not. He's guarding the weakest offensive player in all these possessions now. He's sort of like the quote unquote help side defender. He's guarding Vince Williams most of this game, and even when they needed his help defense, he was caught in the middle of nowhere.
I was hoping he wasn't defending
not guarding Vince Williams.
He had 25 points. So if he was guarding Vince Williams, I don't know. He didn't do a very good job of it.
Even last year with Jimmy Butler, like he wasn't scoring a ton. He was averaging something like 22 points a game. Like the box score numbers aren't that much different than where he was at last year. But the advanced stats liked Jimmy Butler a lot more last year. He was one of the best 5 or 6 players in the league, according to some of these catch-all advanced metrics. That's not the case right now with Jimmy. He's turning the ball over more than usual. He's not creating as many turnovers as he did last season. He is a little bit more prone to getting called for fouls. He's not getting to the line as much as he did last year. The efficiencies aren't there as much. He's just not really. He doesn't. I don't feel like he's in the game sometimes, and that's a problem. It's not as simple as like just put more shots up, but also on a night like this, put more shots up. Put more shots up. Like I don't know what else. I mean, he went 4 for 10, but he was 6 of 8 from the free throw line. Got to the line a lot, but you'd still like to get more from Jimmy, especially against a shorthanded Grizzlies team where it just feels like the best player on the court should just take over. And it never really happened, to the point where the new guy had to kind of take over in the fourth quarter. And Duncan Robinson, who didn't make a field goal in the first 3 quarters, had to take over in the fourth quarter. Where's Jimmy? I think it's a real problem. And look, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The Miami Heat do not have a regular season superstar. They have had a postseason superstar, but you can't count on that. They don't have a regular season superstar. Jimmy Butler needs to play closer to that level. I don't know that there is an out here, and I don't know that just trading Kyle Lowry for Terry Rozier gives him that out. I think the Heat need him to step up a little bit more here.
Yeah, I guess I can't lean that much in that direction, because, to be honest with you, like, this is who he's been for 4 seasons now, and I don't think that's going to change either. And so they kind of have to understand and take that with he's going to have moments scattered throughout the regular season, not nearly as much as he did at one point or another. And I think maybe it is by choice. He's clearly not being the most active and engaged he can be. And if this is just his way of saying, I have to save myself for when it matters most, then I think that the franchise just has to accept that, even as it might be frustrating for their fans.
That's fair enough. To your point, maybe if some of those shots from everybody else go in, you're not thinking so much about it. But I'm zooming out even beyond this game. It's been an issue all season long. I just don't know how much we can really expect from this team. If you're not getting, you don't have to be first round against the Milwaukee Bucks, Jimmy Butler, but you got to be somewhere better between this and where you were even last regular season, just where you were making more of an impact more consistently. But we'll see what happens. The Terry Rozier experiment, the debut, didn't go as planned. Miami come out with an L, 4 straight losses now. They try to right the ship Friday night against the Boston Celtics. Rivalry week. David, this is fun. Miami Heat, Boston Celtics. That's a rivalry for sure. But for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your podcast app.